This is the Tiger HAP, a French army variant of the EC-665, which is an attack helicopter used by the German, French, Spanish and Australian armies. The HAP variant itself is a support and escort helicopter, and in War Thunder is represented as a Tier 6 premium vehicle on the French helicopter line. It is worth saying straight away that this is currently a very strong premium vehicle and is essentially a Tier 7 premium, as aside from some minor differences, it is identical to the French Tier 7 Tiger HAP variant and is arguably better than the German Tiger UHT, so claims that this is too powerful to be a premium are certainly not unfounded. But with that said, let's get into the review. Performance-wise, this certainly is one of the strongest helicopters in the game, with a top speed of 186 miles per hour on the stat card, although in most cases actually you can go faster than that, especially in arcade game modes. Now while this speed is competitive, there are a few other helicopters that do have a fairly large speed advantage, but the Tiger does make up for this with its excellent agility, being able to perform many maneuvers that those other helicopters will simply struggle to perform. This certainly does give the Tiger an edge in many close-range engagements. As for weapons, you have three types of pylon-mounted weapons and then a single 30mm cannon in a nose-mounted turret. The cannon has 750 rounds of ammunition with a rate of fire of 1,200 rounds per minute, and the fact that this can traverse on its turret is also very useful for getting your gun on target quickly, especially in close quarters fighting with other helicopters. Your pylon weapons consist of Mistral air-to-air missiles, Hot 3 anti-tank guided missiles, and Sneb Type 23 unguided rockets. Firstly, the Mistrals are arguably the best heli-mounted air-to-air missile currently, with a velocity of 1,000 meters per second and a maximum G overload of 18 Gs. Infrared countermeasure systems and HIRSS systems have no effect on this missile. Flares on the other hand can stop it, but only if enough are deployed. Small amounts of flares generally don't have much of an effect on the missile. Moving on to the Hot 3. This is an ATGM which, thanks to its tandem charge warhead, has 1,250mm of best effective pen. The missile only has a velocity of 240 meters per second, which, while not bad, is also considerably less than some other ATGMs. Finally, moving on to the Sneb Type 23 unguided rockets. These have very limited use in the game modes you will be playing, but I will go over them regardless. You can carry up to 68 of these, or 44 of them if you want to retain your air-to-air missile capability. They have 300mm of best effective pen, with a max velocity of 600 meters per second, and just over 900 grams of explosive mass. Some other things to note is that the Tiger does get flares, and it also gets a thermal sight, both of which are highly useful. You do also get a radar warning receiver system, which can be only really used at the moment in ground battles, but is very useful nonetheless. There are two game modes that can be played with the Tiger, firstly ground battles in both RB and simulator modes, and then also helicopter battles, which is also known as helicopter enduring confrontation. For now, I will be looking at the Tiger in ground RB and in helicopter battles, starting off with ground battles. So in this game, I have taken out 8 of the Hot ATGMs and 4 of the Mistrals. This is my preferred payload for both mode types, starting off just showing off how effective the thermals can be when you are looking for enemy tanks. You can easily see them. They are of course lit a bright white colour due to the heat of their engine, and this makes finding targets easy. Then it's just a case of guiding your ATGM into the target, which is fairly easy as long as you are within the 2.67 mile range of the missile. Of course, the ATGMs are not the only thing that you will make use of in ground battles. The Mistral air-to-air missiles are something I would always advise bringing. It is equally useful for taking down enemy helicopters and enemy aircraft, the aircraft of which are usually the most difficult to counter when you haven't got the missiles. The radar warning system is another useful feature in this mode. You will know when an SPA spawns, when it begins to detect your helicopter, and when they start to lock onto your helicopter, allowing you to easily prioritize that target before they can do any real damage. Of course, though, in ground battles, your main weapon will be the Hot 3 ATGM. Due to its tandem charge warhead, it of course has 1,250mm of best effective pen, something of which allows it to easily rip through pretty much any enemy ground vehicle that is currently in the game. This makes it highly effective and allows you to very easily pick up ground frags. That, mixed with the radar warning system allowing you to avoid SPAA, the Mistrals allowing you to take out dangerous air targets, and then of course the thermal vision, allowing you to easily find targets in the air or on the ground, this becomes quite the deadly helicopter in ground battles. As far as tactics go, I would advise staying relatively low on most maps and having some form of hard cover around you, as despite having the powerful anti-ground and anti-air weaponry, you are still just a helicopter and you fly relatively slowly, and it doesn't really take that much for an aircraft to be able to sneak up on you and kill you, or for you to be easily spotted by an SPAA and for them to kill you before you can retaliate. So more or less just stay sneaky, make sure to be using the thermals and the radar warning receiver system as efficiently as possible to make sure you are not in the firing line of any enemy vehicles. Now moving on to helicopter enduring confrontation. This is a mode absolutely dominated by air-to-air missiles, so use of your missiles and of course your flares is very important. One thing I would advise doing is looking at other helicopters in the hangar and knowing roughly which helis have access to certain types of weapons. This way in game you can use your optics to identify targets from long range and know exactly what you're flying into. This is also a good way to make sure you are not wasting your flares, of which you only have 60 of. Another thing to keep in mind is that your air-to-air missiles are not always 100% effective. The enemy could use sufficient flares to prevent your missile hitting, it might only do minor damage, or it could just miss for other reasons. So relying solely on your missiles is definitely a bad idea. That is well demonstrated by this situation with an Mi-24D. My missile didn't kill him, so then I engage at closer range using the 30mm cannon, and of course employing my superior agility to prevent him hitting me. Your other weapon, the Hot 3 ATGM, also has a place in helicopter battles. It can essentially be used as a manually guided air-to-air missile, and after some practice it is relatively easy to lead the missile onto a moving enemy target, in this case another Eurocopter Tiger. And of course there are actually some benefits of using ATGMs rather than air-to-air missiles. If you fire an air-to-air missile at an enemy helicopter, they will get a warning saying that the missile's been launched, and they will have an opportunity to deploy their flares. But with the ATGMs, there is no warning and no countermeasure that will directly stop it, aside from them maneuvering their helicopter, which can be effective from time to time, but if you are good at leading the ATGM, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. So in helicopter enduring confrontation, you essentially have 12 missiles that can be used to take down enemy helicopters, 8 of which are the Hot 3s, and 4 of which are the Mistrals. Of course, you will have to guide the Hots, but with some practice it becomes relatively easy to shoot down enemy helicopters with these missiles. Not to mention that you also have the gun, and if you spot a heli that is fairly defenseless, you might as well just go and take them out with the gun, rather than wasting one of your missiles. Of course, attacking enemy helicopters is the best way to make RP and Silver Lions in helicopter battles, but if you prefer a more passive playstyle, you might want to try ground pounding. Behind the enemy spawns on most maps there are plenty of ground targets for you to take out, although the two maps I would advise specifically looking for are Tunisia and Vietnam. Now the Tiger does have options for ground pounding, for example using the Sneb Type 23 rockets that I mentioned earlier. You can use these to destroy medium tanks or light pillboxes, and then you can use your 30mm cannon to destroy light targets such as trucks, AA guns or artillery placements. I would advise taking the loadout featuring 44 Snebs and the 4 Mistral air-to-air missiles, as having those air-to-air missiles for self-defense is more or less essential in heli battles. A final thing to note in helicopter battles is that the thermal sight is just as useful here as it is in ground battles. Of course, all of the enemy helis in the game will have an engine, and that will be radiating heat, so you will easily be able to see them, and then of course engage them accordingly. Well, there we go, the Eurocopter Tiger HAP. Overall, a very strong helicopter in all aspects. As I said earlier, it is a premium helicopter on the French helicopter line at tier 6. It can be purchased via a bundle pack in the Gunship store, costing €49.99. Although, of course, it's a tier 6 premium, but as I said earlier, it is essentially a tier 7. It's arguably better than the German Tiger UHT variant, and aside from a few minor differences, for example the lack of Hellfires, it is more or less identical to the French tier 7 Tiger HAP variant, which puts it in an interesting position. It is more or less a tier 7 despite the labelling as a tier 6. The fact of some people calling it pay to win, I would say that is definitely not unfounded. The claim is fairly reasonable. It is an incredibly powerful helicopter, and it is actually in a position where I would label it as one of the best helicopters in the game, period. Not one of the best premiums, but one of the best helicopters. So it is a bit annoying that that is a premium, and instead of grinding to a top heli, you could just get this thing and basically just dominate helicopter EC and ground battles. Aside from that though, this is a very good helicopter of which I have enjoyed playing very much. I don't personally own it. I had it on a test drive for a month since the release of update 1.91, and I have enjoyed playing it very much. Personally, I bought G-Lynx, and of course I've already made a video on that, link in the description, but they are fairly equal. Personally, I would say for me, G-Lynx edges it out just a bit. Probably a bit of British bias in there for me, but nonetheless I do prefer G-Lynx. But of course, if you are looking purely to grind out the French helicopter tech tree, this is your best bet, and it's probably not gonna disappoint you. It's a very good helicopter, which I have enjoyed playing very much in both game modes, heli battles especially. That is a mode that I do actually play quite a lot, and despite many people not liking that game mode, I personally do enjoy it quite a bit, as many common viewers of my channel will know. Anyway though, thank you very much for watching the video. If you did enjoy, please consider dropping a like, and if you would like to see more helicopter reviews like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.